Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Rebecca Paris is a spiritual and Gene Keys guide, artist, and founder of RaiseTheVibe.org, a resource hub for expanding consciousness. After a profound spiritual awakening in 2017, she transitions from a successful career in advertising to guiding others on their soul journeys. Through one-on-one Gene Keys sessions, her online course, Awakening to the Real You, and her writing, Rebecca empowers others to move from ego to embodiment, codependency to self-sovereignty, and unlock their unique gifts. I love this. And this is an audience, this is next level
Mhm.
consciousness expanding for you all. So you're in for a super treat. This is the level that I'm at currently, where my consciousness, I'm a multidimensional being. I can go travel to different dimensions, which I'll tell you a story about that happened to me in 2010. And I didn't realize what I was doing. I was freaking out. But yes, I'm just so excited to talk with you because I just know you'll share a lots of light and love to our audience and kind of get them into tapping back into their true self. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for being on my show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you actually had a major shift in 2017 that changed everything. Can you go ahead and take us back to that spiritual awakening and what guided you to create Raising the Vibe?
Yes. Well, 2017, my daughter was in college and I was on the phone with her. I was out, I remember this distinct moment. Both I have two young adult children right now, and both of them I would describe as very sensitive souls, kind of, bringing their multidimensional self here that didn't fit so well in the school system. So we kind of had a challenge going through that. But she's in college, she's on the phone with me, and I'm, still very much in my 3D world, walking the dog. And she was just explaining, a situation with two of her friends that was kind of a negative, but there is just no way you could rack this up to a coincidence. And it was so utterly shocking that something opened in me to be able to say, wow, the reality that I know can't be correct. There must be something more out there. I wasn't particularly religious or spiritual, but there was just this opening that my higher self popped in and said, well, what do you think of that? And so I talked to just my friends and got some explanation, maybe that there's frequency that we can't see and hear. And I was able to open up by saying, well, if a dog, there's a dog whistle and they can hear it, but we can't, it doesn't mean it's not there. So that opened me up to realize that life was more than just the five senses. So I just kind of opened to their reality, and I kept hearing, you have a purpose, you have a purpose. And I'm like, okay. And then that just kind of started the ball rolling. I'm pretty mental and intellectual, so I just decided to really uncover the intersection between spirituality and science. And so I went down that road to help me open to more the woo-woo side.
I love the woo side. It's so much fun. So
Yeah.
when I was a baby, my first memory is I had a crow right next to me. It was either a raven or a crow. And that was my very first memory. And I remember crying because I didn't understand. And my mom was coming to get me, and then that was it. But I noticed these crows always near me. And I'm like, what is this? And then I didn't pay attention. I thought they were the most annoying bird in the world. I'm like, go away, stop crying around me. But one time I remember my first, and there was a lot of crows that day too, because I was hearing them. And my first time I was able to go to different realities, and I knew there was something supernatural happening, but I didn't get it because I was really heavy into my drinking. But I was going to different realities, but I was waking up to different realities, but the same home, husband, cats, same scenario, my son at the time. He was maybe five watching something, but everything was different, but it was getting darker and darker and darker. And that was very interesting. That woke me up. I'm like, something else is going on because I've always had supernatural stuff happen to me, but I really didn't pay attention to it. I just brushed it off. But I remember in my dark times of drinking, I didn't love myself at all. And I know you talk about moving from the martyrdom to self-love, and self-love is something that I talk about tremendously. And the first step for me for self-love was becoming sober. So it definitely hits home to not only myself but to many listeners here. What does this transition actually look like, and how can we actually begin that journey of self-love?
Yes. Many people are in martyrdom or giving themselves away without even realizing it. And I was. It was just the way I was taught to be, that you just do for others. And as a mom, I think particularly we get into that identity kind of identity matrix of to be a good mom, you got to do all of this, you know. And I realized that later on that I was in a codependent relationship with my children and just overdoing, like, you know, they're as sensitive souls. I felt like I just had to protect them, and was clearing the way, but you know, I was using all my powers to clear the way so they wouldn't have any missteps or didn't fall, you know. And The Blessings of a Skin Knee is a great book, but it's like you really got to allow people to have their own journey. And I was just way, you know, trying to protect them from this world that I know that I felt would eat them up. So I just was doing everything. And then I have so much external masculine energy naturally. And so the work was to become balanced with the feminine. So in my earlier years, I was just an Uber volunteer, you know, taking care of the kids and then running all these volunteer organizations. But I didn't really understand the balance between the inner and the outer, and knowing that I need to sit back, receive, and give to myself versus everybody else. So I just was on this exhaustion trail of doing everything. And I realized I ended up with adrenal fatigue. So it's, you just don't even know you're there until it's a little bit too late.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I remember with my even with my own children, my son when he was 5 years old, I was always telling him, I was always trying to control him. Do this, do this, do this. I mean, as parents, yes, we'd guide them, but I felt like I was more of a control freak. I needed to control everything, but I really wasn't controlling my own life. Now he's 16 years old. He's
Mhm.
neurodivergent. So neuroemergent is what I would call him. And he is so special. He's taught me so much. And I, to this day, I just love his letter that he wrote me saying, "Dear Mom," or to my favorite person, "you've done so much in my life and you've changed." And it was just a beautiful letter and it really moved me. And then I don't know about some of some people, but for me, I feel like once I started transforming my own life, he started transforming as well. And I noticed that, oh, I love my kids. I actually have two more. They're younger. They're about 11 and 9. And the children are such a blessing in this world. And they truly are our teachers. They come here and they're so pure before they get what would be called, like, what is it? Oh yeah, controlled probably too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
conditioned is the word I'm looking for. So I'm trying to teach the children, hey, this world is not what you think it is. And I would love for us to talk about the Matrix and not necessarily the documentary. I always call it the documentary, but the energetic structure of our reality and what is the difference between the organic and the inorganic matrix, and how can we go ahead and notice which one we're actually operating in?
Yeah, well, I believe many of us are operating in both at this point.
Right.
The way I see it is life is similar to a video game. And,
Yes.
and I don't know if you've seen the movie, I think it's Free Guy. I
No, I
don't
haven't.
know, but a lot of these movies will show, and tr the Truman Show.
Oh, Truman Show for
Yeah.
sure.
So the Truman Show, you know, he's in this video game and all of a sudden he has to go through the dark night of the soul, face his fears, get in the water and, you know, go through it. And it's very symbolic of spiritual awakening. And yet at the end, Truman is walking up the stairs and leaving the set. And that's kind of how I see the organic and the inorganic matrix. The inorganic matrix is controlled. It's the pillars of society that are here to really make us homogeneous, suppress our unique gifts, and we feel controlled, we feel contracted, fearful, like a lot of shoulds and shouldn'ts are in our world. When you start realizing that you are sovereign, that you do not have to fit in the collective consciousness of whatever's going out in the world, and you can create your own reality bubble. You can step out of the roles and identities that keep you trapped. And that's a big thing in the inorganic matrix. These roles of even just like being a vegan or a hippie or an accountant or any role mother, any role you put on it, it's got all these labels that go with it. And because you've identified with that, you get those labels attached to you. So it's really freeing yourself to be your unique essence and not a particular personality matrix, that in this world. So when you feel expanded and free, you know that you're really walking more in the organic matrix.
Yeah, it's like from fear to flow.
Mhm.
Things start coming to you naturally, and you feel so much aligned to do those types of actions instead of saying, "Oh, you need to do this and that." And 2020 was an example. I didn't really wear
Mhm.
masks. I didn't do
Either.
the vaccine. I know some people are like, "Oh, why did you do the vaccine?" I didn't feel like I needed it. I didn't feel like I need. And for those who feel like they need it, that's on you. That's your thing, you know. I no judgment. But for me, I want to do what aligns to my soul, not
Mhm.
having people tell me what to do and I just do it because that's how I used to be. I was a massive people pleaser and I would just do what my friends said, what my family would tell me to do, what the schools would tell me to do. And you bring up such a good point about the school system. Yeah, I didn't fit in with the school system at all. I was like, this is, I remember as a little child in the playground at school, I'm like, what is my purpose here on this playground? Like, I'm not having fun at all here. Like, I need to be doing things that I like to do. But I didn't discover that until I was about 35 years old. Later on in life, that I'm like, oh, there's so much freedom that
Right.
we can just create our own reality and just really live in a magical world. Like everything is magic to me now. I can go outside in nature and I was taking my children out. We were doing this nice hike and I was like, all you need to do is say, God, God, universe source, show me your glory and you will see magic happen. And so we did. We saw all these unique birds pop out. And we actually, one of the ladies from the exhibit center, I guess it finally opened on the magical day. It opened finally for us. And she brought out a horned owl. And so we got to see it up close and personal. And we're like, wow. I mean, we didn't get too close to it, obviously, because it's an owl. And but it was just so beautiful to see that magic. And so yes, I love it. But you actually help people move from, we're going to talk a little bit more about the codependency to self-sovereignty. We were just talking about this a little bit. What are
Yeah.
some signs someone can go ahead and notice that they're stuck in that codependency pattern, even subtly?
Yeah. Like you mentioned earlier, it has a lot to do with control.
Yeah.
And when you believe your happiness is based on what others are doing, and you're feeling like that you can't be happy if this person is doing this or this or this, and that they're in a close relationship with you, you might be codependent. I had big issues with control. It's in my gene keys. We can talk about that a little bit later, but my attraction field is going from control to valor, or to authority to valor. And so that means that everything that's attracted to my world in this lifetime is about control, me being controlled or me controlling others. And so the codependent part is, basically with my children, like I just felt like I had to control everything. But what you're doing is you really can't control even children. You have to have some authority over them, but you really can't control what anybody else does. So that really just really traps you into this world of, being ineffective and just unhappy all the time because the world is so out of control and people won't behave like you want them to do. And yeah, what I realized, the only thing you can really control is your own attitude. So that was like really stepping out of that. And knowing that it kind of fell into a rescuer victim pattern. And I don't know if you heard about the triangle of the perpetrator, the victim, and the rescuer. Like we all play one of these roles in this, and it's an inorganic pattern. And I was just playing the rescuer. Like my children often took the role of victims and they were needing help. So I would swoop in and be the rescuer, and it made my ego feel good. But what it does is it doesn't allow them to own their own sovereignty and know that they're and have self-esteem and know that they can do it. And it exhausts me. So I'm not able to fulfill my particular mission in life because I'm so busy trying to control other people's lives when they should be trying to do that themselves. So it takes a while to unwind that. When you're deep into that kind of codependence, you really just have to step out easily because the other parties are just not used to thinking for themselves. So even as my, young adult children, my latest thing is when they're always asking me, "What do you think, Mom?" And I'm like, what do you think? That's the answer. So when they ask me a question, well, what do you think? And it's hard to get to that point where I'm automatically saying, well, what do you think? Because I would automatically just go, oh, here's the answer, because I just want to fix it. But it's not about fixing, it's allowing them to find their own path and for the person who's rescuing to let go and just work on your own life. And you get true happiness by just doing your own, by building working on your own desires, not trying to fix somebody else, because you really can't.
Yes, we are responsible for ourselves. And like I was mentioning to you before, we're there to guide and support our children, not control them. And I felt growing up, I was controlled. And I think that's why I am the black sheep of my family. I am the baby. My siblings are about 11, 10, and 7 years older than me. But I was the one who was the rebellious one because I didn't like these rules. And my mom said this, that you were like this since you were a baby. You were in the car seat and you wanted to get out. You had boogers everywhere because you were crying. You did not want to be confined. But it makes sense because I had my Akashic records read to me, and who I would consider like my sister, my soul sister, she told me that I am a starseed from Andromeda, and we're all about freedom. Freedom, freedom, freedom. And so I'm like, okay, what is this starseed stuff about? And it opened up a whole new world for me. And then I learned more about what that was. And then how there's other star seeds here. And we all came here on a mission to share the truth and help
Yes.
humanity ascend. And I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. So, yes, I had to let go, like you mentioned, let go and just do what my soul purpose was. I think that Akashic record reading really, truly, truly helped. But I wanted to talk about those gene keys. I've never
Mhm.
heard of it before. Can you actually go ahead and share this concept?
Sure. I don't know if have you heard of human design?
I have heard of human design, and I forget if I'm a manifest. I forget. It's been a while since I've had it done, but I have my chart somewhere.
Okay. Well, yeah, a lot of people have heard of human design, but they may not have heard of the gene keys. So, Richard Rudd, who brought in this transmission of the gene keys, was a student of human design and studied with, I think, the founder, Ra Uru Hu, for 7 years or so. And he's written books on human design. And then he had this 3 days of kind of transcendent space to really see and bring in a method that like sits on the shoulders of human design. So it's based on some of the human design concepts of, using the I Ching and astrology. And he added the DNA and the DNA codons on top of that, as well as really putting it into words and looking at what you're here to do, why you're here, what keeps you healthy, what's your biggest challenge in life as some, and you have a key for each of those things. And that's just the very the basic genius of your outline, but it goes way deeper into a lot of your emotions and, what your cause of suffering and what your attraction field is. So for example, my life's work, the words go from dislocation to orientation to unity. And it's gene key number 2, which is the prime feminine key. And it's paired with my biggest challenge, which is on the opposite side of the I Ching, which is entropy going to freshness to beauty. And it's the prime masculine. So my two main keys are balancing the feminine and the masculine, moving toward the feminine, which is very interesting because my whole early life was all about doing, doing, doing. Expressing out in the world, being a leader, being VP at 28, and it's just like, and the work is for me to sit back and be and allow and receive. I just wasn't in balance at all with how much I was giving versus how much I was receiving. So the gene keys kind of explain that, and they go from like a shadow frequency in each of these keys to the highest level, which is called a city, which is like frequency that's unhindered by any static or chaos in the field, and it's just your true connection. And the gene keys show you your purpose. It's just an amazing tool. If you're into human design, I encourage you to look at the gene keys. And I do sessions for people that you would go to the genekeys.com website, get your free profile. You can learn a lot by just going there and doing your free profile with your birth date, time, and place. But then it can be a little overwhelming. So a lot of people would come to me to really sit with it. And it's about contemplation. So you have your keys, and the idea is you sit with that, and you realize, what are my patterns? Why am I in the shadow? And then when you're in like an anger moment, it encourages us to stop and pause, and to stop the the neuron cycle from just doing autopilot, and then realizing, why am I so upset by this? And then it can just really allow the left brain and the right brain to work together to just come to some sort of epiphany, and then you can have a breakthrough and just really be able to change a pattern just by kind of knowing what your imprint is. So I love the Gene Keys. I've been into it for 6 or 7 years, and I've been a guide for 3 or 4. So
And I'll have to check that out. So it's on your
Mhm.
website too, right?
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
RebeccaParis.com. You can find any of that.
Yes, awesome. And now you've also created an online course
Mhm.
called Awakening to the Real You. I love that.
Yeah.
That's where everybody's at right now, awakening to the real you. Can you go ahead and
Mhm.
share what this process looks like and what perhaps
Sure.
someone might be experiencing as they begin that awakening?
Yes. Well, so I look at the ego versus the authentic and the divine self. So the way I describe the ego, so when you come in, you can think of yourself as your essence, like full of light, and you're like this snowflake that has all these unique patterns, and it's just beaming with light. And when you come into the world, as we were talking about, this society just is in your parents and your environment and inherited things put these sticky notes on your snowflake, so it inhibits the light. And the sticky notes are, you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, or be a good girl, or don't do that. And you just start getting smaller and smaller, and your snowflake just has less and less light because you take on the programs of society. And that's the ego. The ego is all the programs that we come in here trying to be something that we're really not. And so when you awaken, it's almost like taking those sticky notes off and then just letting the light that's truly you come through. So that's how I describe the ego to the divine self. And in the course, it's really, I do it with a friend of mine, and we're really trying to help people that are left brain and right brain. And so we add both, like the intellectual knowledge about what's the nature of a reality. We talk about the hologram. We talk about sacred geometry, that everything's really light and sound and sacred geometry, and it's all math. And then we talk about the miraculous human body, and we have 15 strands of DNA, not 2 or 3. They're just not actualized. They're really dormant. So the junk DNA that mainstream scientists talk about is not junk at all. It's just uncoded. So we talk about, how can you start coding your 15 strands of DNA to be in Christ consciousness. We also talk about the ego versus the divine self, and use movies like Free Guy and Truman and The Matrix to kind of explain what the difference is. And then we have real practical tools for ascension, and kind of, what do you need to do to really get on your path to make sure you're living in the organic matrix versus the controlled negative. So it's either life-giving or life-taking. And just real practical tools, from detox baths to nature to different meditations as well. And so my friend goes into these really awesome meditations that's at the end of each section, to help you internalize the work that we just talked about. So it's a wonderful course, and you can get to that from my website, RebeccaParis.com, as well.
Oh, I love that. Yes. It's like you're talking about snowflakes, right? So
Mhm.
water, it's liquid, it's solid, and then it has these forms of different like geometrical shapes of these snowflakes, and that's like the frequency.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, and yeah, I tried to explain this to my husband, and he has a PhD, as he's a mechanical engineer, and he's still like, "What are you talking about?"
Hard.
Because I didn't grow up religious or spiritual, and I really didn't tap into my spirituality until I became sober. But he is more on the religious side. We actually
Oh,
met in church,
wow.
and during street ministry when we're serving our unhoused friends, and it was a divine connection though, because I feel like our souls made a contract, and he's allowing me to finally settle down because I mean, I'm already a hyper person as it is, but I was in that hustle grind mentality, working constantly, like busy, 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 that during COVID allowed me to go ahead and just relax. He was working still, luckily he had his job still. And I was able to tap into myself and then learn my gifts and then really discover what this icky world was. I'm like, ooh, this world is not what it seemed like.
It's
And I
not.
Right. And then I really had to go through the dark night of the soul where I was alone. I couldn't talk to anybody. And that's why I'm so grateful that I was able to have this podcast so I can bring on guests like yourself and then just people sharing their experiences, what they're going through now during this time, because this time is an incredible time to live in. I feel like I'm like, no wonder why my soul chose this time, even though I get very sad still, because I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, I feel trapped. Like this is a prison planet for me. I feel trapped. And I'm like, I'm not trapped though. My mind is free. So I just have to reframe everything. Like, no, Gina, you're here on a mission. You're on a mission.
exactly.
So you're also an artist and a writer. How does creativity weave into your spiritual work, and how can listeners go ahead and create expression, what I was just talking about, especially to tap into their higher self?
Yes, and I think that's becoming. So I was left my corporate job when I started had my children, and about five, once my youngest got into kindergarten, I just started sketching. I liked art when I was a kid, younger, but I put it away because I just went on to the more practical pursuits of making money and getting a job, and just started picking that up. And I sketched his face. I'm like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. And then I just kept going and ended up without very little training becoming a portrait artist. Like I've done 70 portraits when I was in Atlanta, pets and mostly young children. And I had an artist come teach me how to do oils. I had like 6 lessons, private lessons, but that's it. I was a business major and then became, and just having the confidence to step into that other side. So I think that came about because I needed to step into the receptive, the feminine, the creative, the intuitive, because I was rarely into the masculine, logical left brain. So it really came in to help balance me. And I was so happy just doing the art. So it was really a nice balance. But I do believe that creative flow is the answer to living in the world that we're in today and creating your own reality bubble. I haven't really watched the news in 6 years at all. I mean, I turned it off. I'm like, wow, this is making me angry. I'm just going to turn it off. And I haven't missed it at all because it's a frequency that's coming in that's a low frequency that I don't want in my reality. So I basically curated my reality with the frequencies that I want to be in. I live in the mountains, have a mountain view right here, just secluded. I was in a busy, suburban, or in Atlanta and had to, 5 years ago, I took the big step of listening to myself and just left. It was during COVID and ended up, consciously uncoupling with a wonderful man who I was married to for 27 years. But I had to listen to that soul inside of me because I realized the most important relationship we have is with our own soul. And if I can't ignore that constant, no voice in my head saying you've got a purpose, you've got to find yourself and moving to this rural area, I think I needed to do that. So that's all about finding the feminine. But right now I'm immersed in a creative project, which is doing creating home movies that of all the video clips I've taken over the years of my family. And I'm like, hadn't compiled a lot of them. So I'm putting them together with music, but it brings you to flow state, and that flow state helps bring in the source light. So creativity is the one of the main answers to bring in your flow, your source, and not be so worried about the fear that's being broadcast and all the crazy that's going out in the world. So I guess I hope I answered your question on that.
Oh, yes, you definitely did. And
Mm.
about the news, I had to unplug that a long time ago too. I'm like, forget this nonsense. I don't
Yeah.
want to listen to this caca anymore. So
No, not
I just,
true.
I didn't want to listen to it. And it's interesting because my husband was always about the news, the news, the news, the news. And then he unplugged for a while, and then he plugged it back on.
Oh,
Not when I'm there, but like in his car while he's driving.
yeah.
And he admitted to me, he's like, Gina, I had to unplug the news again. And since I've unplugged the news again, I've just been getting closer to God, he says. And I've just been more aligned to my soul. And the way he was saying this, I was like, wow, he is changing. The world is changing. I was saying this to somebody else that, because my mom used to be a huge people pleaser and she'd always say yes to everything. She started saying no. Finally, at age 75. So she's saying no. He's saying, or he's using words like intuition. And I'm just like, okay, something's happening here. We're shifting, our world is shifting. And it's beautiful to bring this into to our children. And the children, like I could just okay, so my son, the young one, his name is Peyton. He's 9 years old. And since he was a baby, he always did this like rocking motion. And I just let him be. That's his soul soothing practice, whatever. He's just done it since until this day. And so he was on the couch with me and he was rocking back and forth. I said, do you know what? You could have totally patented your idea because right now they're promoting this rocker chair for adults.
Really?
Yeah, so that way they're either in their car or they're in their desk, but they just have a little subtle movement, just like this. And it's supposed to help with mood, help with your posture, it's supposed to do a lot of benefits. I said, and you're already doing that. I said, how magical are you? So I just give him kudos because old Gina would have been like, stop rocking. That's
Right.
annoying. Why are
Right.
you
Right.
doing that? But I've totally changed. I'm like, you could have actually patented this and made some money. I'm just playing with him. But anyway, I love my children. They're just total blessings. But going back to what I was going to talk about when it comes to like spiritual practices or even like some few ascension tools, what would you actually recommend for women who are just beginning to expand their consciousness?
Yes. Well, I love Insight Timer. It's just a meditation app. So I'd say guided meditations are the way to go. There's all sorts of things on there for sleep, for just a 5 minute morning ritual. So definitely try that. It's a free app, and you can just explore Insight Timer and start with some guided meditations. One of the things I do, and I think it's helpful for a lot of people, is journaling. Wake up in the morning and I just download like any dreams that I've had because dreams are so symbolic to me and I love to decipher them. So I'm like, wonder what that's about. So just getting it out on paper, however you do it. One of the things, like if you're just beginning, this worked for my children who were really struggling with things. It's called the 5 minute journal. And it's a gratitude journal. And if you're not a journaler, if you don't want to do a lot of writing, it's like a fill in the blank in the morning. It just kind of talks about what you're hoping for the day, what what you're grateful for. And at the end of the day, you're kind of recapping, the great things, the things you wanted to do better. And it really changes your mindset and puts you in an attitude of gratitude because that is the way to shift your consciousness. And I heard a neurologist say that with the law of attraction, if you can sustain a motion for 17 seconds, that's when all the matching frequencies come to it. So you're either going to spiral up or spiral down based on what that 17 seconds of emotion is. So just really being aware of your thoughts and your self-talk. So many women, are just discouraged about aging or weight gain or feeling unworthy for whatever. It's just your self-talk is so important to really catch yourself before you go down a rabbit hole down there, and just really a lot of affirming behavior. Each morning I used to say, Holy Spirit guides my thoughts, words, and actions to really just put my higher self in the driver's seat. So my ego, I'm like, I am allowing my divine self to lead the day. And so my ego is not going to be in control. So just, affirmations, intentions, getting in nature is so important. So sitting by a tree, just it recalibrates your system and good music too.
Oh yeah, good music always sets my frequency for the day in the car when I'm having a not so great morning and I'm like, you know what? Let's change that. And I'll put my favorite song on and like, okay, dance, roll down the windows, feel that breeze and just
Okay.
not drive, but drive. Have fun. That
Nice,
is your little
right?
video game that you're like Mario Kart, you know.
Yeah.
Safety first though, of course. But you're so right about the whole video game thing. I swear it's like, but what I've noticed is I used to suppress my emotions and my feelings, and I used to hold them, and then I'd have these outbursts that I just like didn't know where they come in. But now I feel. When I feel, I feel. If I'm sad, let me cry. Let
Mhm.
me cry. Those ugly cries are the best cries because
Yes.
they bring joy afterward. Because it's a release, an energetic release, and just like so much better. But you're so true about being in nature. You know, those guided meditations. I love breath work myself, so I do a guided breath work meditation, and these practices are definitely a great start. Rebecca, where can our listeners go ahead and connect with you? I know you mentioned your website, but anywhere on social media, perhaps?
Well, I have Facebook, but it's one of the things I'm trying to gear up to do.
Yeah,
I haven't been a huge social media person,
I hear
so
you.
I don't have a lot on there. But the two websites, RebeccaParis.com is a good one to reach me. And I'd like to also say, I started Raising the Vibe, at raisingthevibe.org when I was in Atlanta. I started gathering people, I was awakening, and we started as a book club, and then we turned it into a nonprofit, and we had speakers, and it just really started bubbling up this, ascension energy that in the middle of this kind of country club community that I was in that it wasn't talked about then. So it was a wonderful start. And then COVID hit, and then I moved. So I turned all of that, I ended up deciding to really expand the website and put all sorts of tools out there. It's just a free site that I'm just leaving up as in support of the Ascension for humanity. But it's got a lot of tools on there are three sections, which is know thyself, when it has definitions and resources for like the Akashic records, the human design gene keys, the Enneagram, all these tools to help you to know who you are, what your imprint here is. Heal yourself, which is, I'm so into a lot of energy healing. There's Reiki and there's specialized kinesiology and EMDR and breath work and family constellation. There's so many modalities. So I just put them all out there, and it's like a little definition, like a little Wikipedia for all the different modalities. So you can go there, and then the Ascension tools are also on there. But it's have some videos. Also, just have a whole list of books. I find that my path was through reading, and I know that's not a lot of people's path. My daughter's through her spiritual path is through her body, through yoga and meditation. Mine is like I had that use my intellect to get me to there. We all have different ways of doing it, but I have on raisingthevibe.org have a whole list of resources of all the books and how to awaken through through channeled meditations, awaken through trauma and pain, awaken through relationships, and the books in each category of what I've, like Codependent No More, my Melanie Beattie, is a great book for people who are in codependence. So I would encourage you just to go to raisingthevibe.org to check it out, and hopefully one of these tools will resonate with you.
One-stop shop, right? That's
It is
awesome.
just there for anybody who's wanting to find it. So it's just a lot of Google searches end up there. So
It's amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much for being on my show. Just one last question that I love to ask all the guests. What does it mean to you to shine within?
Uh, it's to honor self above all. Never give yourself away. Always don't do anything that is dishonoring yourself, and have good boundaries and be able to say no. So that's how I shine within.
Beautiful, Rebecca. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.